So, when it comes to news, let's set the record straight. Google News optimization is not only for news sites. Any website which regularly invests in high quality content, original and timely content, can reach and engage audiences and drive quality traffic with Google News. And you want to claim your share. Google News powers results of 24 billion clicks every single month to content creators. Being included can be a game changer for content visibility, but audience targeting and reach varies greatly depending on placement, so you need to know which you're optimizing for. The first way is through partnering with Google in their News Showcase, a content licensing program in which Google pays participating publishers to curate their best content. It's unique within Google News products because the publisher's editorial team selects which stories to show readers. This selection is displayed across Google News services as well as in Google Discover in a sources panel. The second is personalized placements, where Google selects content for each individual user based on their interests, sources, locations, and past activity on Google Search and YouTube. This algorithm dictates what's shown on the For You tab, suggested sources, headlines, and Discover, subscribe with Google Box, as well as news distribution via YouTube TV, push notifications, and email. These can proactively deliver a highly engaged audience if your coverage matches the user's topic of interest. The last are location placements. Everyone of a qualifying age who shares the same region, language, and location setting sees the exact same content in the News tab in Universal Search, the headline section in the Google News app and site, through Google Assistant, or developing news information panel in YouTube. For this reason, they have a much higher impact potential. Plus, placements such as the top stories or local news carousels can offer an easier route to display for highly competitive search terms than attempting to rank position 1 organically. And this ability to drive significantly more visibility also applies to video content, with Google News offering non-personalized placements on YouTube's top news, breaking news, and local news shelves, on youtube.com/news, and in the news section of the YouTube app. These can boost brand awareness and large spikes in article sessions or video views if you earn a prominent placement. But maybe you're wondering, with all of these opportunities to connect with audiences, why don't you see more traffic from Google News? Logging into Google Analytics, you will see sources that are clearly driven by Google News under referral, but these are not showing you the full impact. You can also clearly identify sessions from the Google News Showcase, but these are not showing you the full impact because most of the sessions are tracked under Google Organic, mixed up in such a way that it's impossible to separate them out from your other organic traffic sources. And on top of this, traffic from the Discover app, some of the other sources tracked under Direct. Inclusion in the daily email is under referral from whatever email client it came from, and most of that YouTube visibility and engagement, which is not insignificant, is off-platform. So you will only see the users who subsequently click through to the site. With so many divergent sources, Google Analytics cannot clearly show the full power of Google News. So we turn to Google Search Console, which has a dedicated section for Google News. So you think that would be the place where Google reports the full impact, but no. This only shows the browser apps and the native site. Then you need to add the News tab in Search, but the top stories and local news carousels are hidden somewhere in the web search data. Discover traffic has its own section. Google hasn't got around to adding Google News Showcase. And email, push, and YouTube, they're just not reported here and never will be. And we all know that YouTube analytics is not going to be the saving grace. So there is no Google reporting that can succinctly show you the full impact of Google News. Like many areas of marketing, we have to accept that not everything will always be clean and perfectly measurable, but that doesn't mean the channel is not immensely valuable. And now that you understand where the channel contributes, you can use trends in that data as a proxy for overall impact, because all content publishers should be investing in a Google News strategy, else you will be sacrificing significant visibility to your competitors. But that leads us to the question, How do you appeal to the Google News algorithms? Google wants you to think it's as simple as a few bullet points. Unsurprisingly, it's not. These so-called guidelines are too simplistic and offer little tactical guidance. At best, the Google documentation only clarifies that much of the ranking system used in Google News is shared with that of Google Search. From here on, let's presume you're already doing the work that boosts your visibility across all Google surfaces and focus on Google News specific optimizations. These tactics fall into three categories: branding, technical, and content. Let's kick off with branding. When it comes to the Google News algorithm, the conventional signals of relevance and popularity take a back seat to source authoritativeness of the brand and its assets. Essentially, to have a chance at catching a click from a human, your brand has to battle the Google News algorithm gatekeeper, which draws heavily on the Google Knowledge Graph, a database that understands connections between brands, products, places, people, events, or other things and facts about them, and allows entities to be contextualized through their connections to other entities. This is what powers the grouping of articles into full coverage reports or the selection of content in the For You tab. So what does that all mean? Let me walk you through an example. The knowledge graph understands that a reader has previously engaged with news content about Wizkid, who's a musician who's based in Lagos, who has featured in the song Brown Sing Girl, which is by Beyonce, which won him a Grammy Award. Now, Enum is an entertainment journalist who regularly writes about Wizkid, has covered Brown Skin Girl and the Grammy Awards, all of which got a good click-through rate from Google News surfaces. To her articles on Pulse Nigeria, a news organization based in Lagos, which regularly covers all of these topics and more. Google understands all of these connections. So when it wants to show news about Wizkid in the top stories carousel, the algorithm will be looking to display content from Enum at Pulse, not just because she used the keyword Wizkid in the article, but primarily because of the relevant relationships in the knowledge graph. To fully leverage these connections, highlight author expertise. Include a byline linked to an author's page in every article you submit to Google News. The content of this bio should work towards establishing expertise and the author being recognized as an authority in their field. Ensure bios include the author's full name and professional headshot, alongside a meaningful short bio of 3 sentences, including relevant professional experience and awards. If they're comfortable, also link their professionally used social media accounts or at least their work email address. But for a real competitive advantage, collaborate with your key writers to have them entered into the Google Knowledge Graph. Being associated with a Google Acknowledged contributor enhances your publication's credibility and reinforces Google trust in the value of your content, increasing the chance that it will be chosen over your competitors. But it's not only about establishing your author's entities, but also your brand entity in the knowledge graph. Else, Google has less confidence in the facts about your brand, its relevance to topics, and its relationship to other entities. In this case, Google will only partially apply what I call entity-level visibility signals. They're more commonly known as site-level ranking factors, but rank is somewhat antiquated, and a brand entity is more than just a website. Plus, there's no such thing as rank on Google News surfaces. The most authoritative source on your brand entity should be your own website. Leverage this to the fullest, turning your About page into a detailed dossier for your brand entity, paying special attention to awards, editorial policies, and non-generic contact information, all of which lend a lot of credibility. You can then corroborate some of the facts you're saying about your brand by creating a publication in Google Publisher Center. Leverage the ability to associate your publication and through it your brand with a key category, language, and location, as well as classify content into sections to exhibit your expertise in specific topics. Ideally, at least one of these sections will be tailored for local news to increase the chance of you getting into the local news carousel in universal search. Google gives you 4 options for creating a section. You should always have a personalized feed and at least one video feed. For all of the others, Set them up as RSS feeds, not web locations. RSS feeds will allow you to control the selection of articles. So, for example, you could exclude all sponsored content, as well as the ordering of articles. So you could ensure your top performing articles are shown first in your publication, increasing the chance of a click and helping you make the best impression on the algorithms for those topical areas. Because readers will visit that publication. Because by creating that publication, you improve discoverability. The brand becomes eligible to appear in the newsstand area of the Google News app. Plus, you can create a following. Similar to a social network, readers can follow your publication, greatly increasing the chance your content will be shown in personalized placements. And just like on social media, you should support this action by adding a Google News follow button linking to your publication from your website. But it's not only the ability to turn readers into followers. You can also convert readers into paying subscribers by leveraging the Subscribe with Google paywall. Because if your content is product level quality, you deserve to get paid for it. Now, building a brand cannot be done without investing in a strong social media presence. And while the impact of social media signals on Google News ranking is contentious, at the very least, invest in regular topical tweeting to become eligible for the From Twitter section in full coverage reports and the Twitter carousel in universal search, which according to NewsDash appears on approximately 30% of all US news-related queries. And I can't emphasize this enough. Publish your video content on YouTube to be eligible for all the Google News placements and video packs, which show for around 40% of news-related search queries. And while we're on the topic of YouTube, take the time to create news-related posts in your YouTube Pages community tab. This makes you eligible to be featured in the latest news posts carousel in the YouTube app News tab, which can deliver a surprising amount of engagement and sessions, even with as little as one post a day. Now, while Google News may include your article or video content because you have a strong brand, you can dramatically increase the presence when you have a solid technical foundation. When it comes to Google News specific SEO, there are 5 key optimizations. Firstly, entice Googlebot to crawl faster. Like any Google surface, your content cannot be indexed by Google News without first being crawled. But speedy crawling is even more critical in Google News as it works off a short-term index and heavily biases fresh content, making indexing speed paramount to success. Submitting a news sitemap to Google Search Console and adding the URL to your robots.txt file to speed up crawling of news content. Being sure URLs are added immediately upon publication and removed after 48 hours. Then, for both your sitemap and Publisher Center RSS feeds, use WebSub to notify Google of new content. Else, content from the section feeds will only be updated hourly and the XML sitemaps crawled even less frequently. When Google does crawl, you want to be putting your best content forward, not only text, but also visuals. Images are a key driver of click-through rate from Google News. On news surfaces, Google may show various sizes of thumbnails, or in some cases, just no image at all, based on the available image aspect ratios and resolutions. If you want a picture to show, it is essential for the content to contain at least one image placed near the article title that has a resolution of 50,000 pixels in a 16:9 aspect ratio in JPEG or PNG format. Be warned that WebP works well for Google products, but it can cause compatibility issues on other marketing tools, such as those for email or push notifications, so it's best to be avoided. But if you want the largest possible image to show and to outperform your competitors, ensure images are exactly 1,200 by 674 pixels, add 4:3 and 1:1 aspect ratio versions, and ensure the max image preview is set to large in the code. Technology can aid in many of the aspects of these requirements, such as automated cropping to the additional aspect ratios and warning messages if content creator tries to upload a non-compatible format. But it cannot help with the actual content of the image. Don't allow your article to get lost in a sea of sameness. To the Associated Press, CBS, CNN, and USA Today, I say, there must be more than one photo of Prince Harry out there. Remember, a standout image can compel a reader to click on your story over a competitor's, resulting in Google News algorithms driving higher readership, not only to that article, but also future content in that topical area. So train your editorial teams on the why behind image requirements, especially as this not only impacts visibility in Google News, but beyond to Discover, Universal Search, many other niche Google services. The third technical tactic is to eliminate any date confusion. Google states they don't depend on a single date factor because all factors can be prone to issues. So you need to leave no room for interpretation. Show a single user visible date and label it appropriately with text like published or last updated. Not both, like Huffington Post. Not a certain number of hours ago, like BBC News. And while Fox News does an excellent job on the date formatting, it should be placed above the headline. It should not be placed above the headline, but rather between the headline and the article text. Also, minimize the presence of other dates on the page, for example, by not including the publication date of related articles, and remember to internationalize. The 7th of the 3rd, 2023 could be read as either March 7th or July 3rd, depending on your location. Leave no ambiguity. Make the date clear no matter the region in both the user interface as well as in the structured data. Because both date published and, if necessary, date modified are properties in news article structured data markup. Think of structured data as communicating to Google in its mother tongue. This markup helps Google's indexer clearly understand the content, increasing the chance it will show your desired headlines, images, and the correct date information on Google News surfaces. But don't stop with just article structured data. I doubt you needed another reason to love frequently asked question markup, but just in case, this feature is not only for universal search, it also is used in Google News in the full coverage reports. If you target the US English-speaking market, you could earn a first mover advantage by using speakable markup to have key sections of your topical news stories read aloud on Google Assistant-enabled devices, where users ask, "What's the latest on a topic?" It reads up to 3 articles. Right now, competition for these slots is very low, so it can be a relatively easy way to reach a new user base. And don't think that there isn't traffic to be earned. Google verbally attributes the source and sends the full article URL to the user's mobile device through the Google Assistant app. Another underutilized feature is broadcasting live or live blog posting markup. This earns a red live badge and often leads to preferential treatment in competitive placements such as the video pack or top stories carousel, which can give you a boost in around 5% of news-related topics. And it also allows you to enter live-only placements on YouTube, where right now you can earn visibility exceptionally easy due to the extremely low competition. Tying back into the earlier point, also add author structured data to connect your brand entity to your author's entities and the authority they bestow. This can earn them placements in journalistic featured snippets and you, as their employer, more credibility. And establish your brand entity by adding news media organization structured data, unless publishing is not your primary business model, but a blog attached to a larger website, in which case use organization markup. Either way, add this to your About page to confirm as much relevant information as the structured data allows to re-emphasize the facts about your entity you've already wrote on the human readable page. Paying special attention to the name, the images, contact details, same as, and also ensure any notable awards you have won are included, but the most critical is the description. This can influence the subtitle of your knowledge panel. And this matters because from a branding perspective, there is a big difference between being described generically as a company or a website versus a newspaper or a tabloid. But personally, I aim for being described as a media company like CNN. And this can be influenced by making sure that whatever you write in your brand bio, on your about page, on social media, in industry directories, in digital PR articles, always start with the description, brand is a media company, or however you want to be described. This repetition will influence Google over time to agree with your description. Once you're done adding the structured data for your brand and assets, then mark up all the other entities featured in your content. When these entities are explicitly understood by Google, it cements the connections between them and the brand entity. This strengthens the brand through relatedness and increases the probability of your brand being found in the context of topical queries. Now, when it comes to digital content, we all know that headlines can make or break a story's success. So maybe you're wondering why headlines are a technical topic. It's because no matter how your writers are trying to serve all of those surfaces, we need to have dedicated headlines. Trying to do this with a single headline is impossible. Headlines created for social engagement may not perform well on search. Headlines written for SEO may not be engaging enough to perform on site. And to make matters worse, Google News displays them in a smaller number of characters than other distribution platforms. But there is a technical solution to this creative problem. Barry Adams recently published a piece about the 5 headlines Google cares about. I strongly recommend you read it, but I'll do my best to summarize the key points. The first is a visible headline, which is the one shown at the top of a news article and wrapped in a H1 tag. Write this for your users. You can use your witty puns or lengthy lead-ins that work well offline if you cater to the clear, topic-relevant headline Google News algorithms need with the structured data headline. This is what is almost always used in the article headline in the top stories carousel. The key here is to include the focus topic and make it concise so it's not cut off. The exact character count differs, but aim for under 85 characters. Of course, articles can also be shown in the normal search results, but here Google displays the title tag. This also needs to include the topic, but it should be close to the start as possible, and you only have around 65 characters until you're cut off. Discover is Google News' answer to social media feeds. So it's not surprising that on occasion, it will show an article's open graph tag, which are designed for social over other headlines. And in any case, write a custom title to drive engagement on social platforms is always worth the time investment. And while we're on the subject of social, don't forget that YouTube video headlines, where you should use approximately 70 characters, are also important. Make sure you name the topic and put a pipe between the brand name and the end of the title, as this is best practice on YouTube. With the technical ability to customize each of the 5 headlines for their key distribution channel, you're more likely to capture the user's attention and win the click. Which leads us into content optimizations. Effective Google News optimization requires planning news stories into an editorial calendar. Content is generally categorized into 4 types: breaking news, trending topics, seasonal, and evergreen topics. But these need to be reframed when it comes to targeting Google News in the context of the knowledge graph. Creating content for Google News does not mean reporting every hot news story as it happens. While the specifics and timing of these stories are impossible to know before they break, bear in mind that they relate to larger topics. The current Quebec fire ties into a larger topic of wildfires, which ties into climate change and the environment. Do you want to build a connection between your brand entity and those topics? If not, how does covering the event fit into your strategy? Because the Google News algorithm has choices. Many brands are vying for its attention. And if you haven't covered these topics before, chances are your brand and its writers are not seen as experts in the field. So why would Google choose your piece over another, more authoritative brand? See breaking news stories as a new angle by which to cover a topic that is always in the news. Although there are peaks and troughs, these types of entities almost always have a top stories carousel. Prince Harry testifying against the tabloids can be your article angle this week. What's your backup to be in the carousel next week if he doesn't do something of note? Because people who are interested in Harry will read a consistent stream of content, and Google will provide this to them on news surfaces. The only question is, are you trying to earn a place in that stream when it's most competitive, which will be a struggle, or regularly covering the evergreen topic to become a brand of preference for the audience and the algorithms? Because most breaking news can be tied into an ever-present entity. Taylor Swift's breakup or Pope Francis undergoing surgery. Even if there is no hot news, the top stories carousel or video pack are commonly present for people of note. Plus, a well-written article about that entity will be featured in Google News' personalized placements. This applies to brands, locations, or other niche topics where the specifics of the news cycle change regularly, but the interest in the topic is always present. You just need to identify these evergreen topics and work out the cadence of how often you need to publish to be featured on a regular news week, which is often around 1 to 2 days, and have a plan for what articles you will write if no breaking news angle comes in. Because if you have a plan on how to consistently cover these evergreen topics, Google News will consistently deliver sessions. And this plan should also include trending topics. With breaking news, you can't see it coming. Trending news, you can get out in front of it if you do the research. Let's say I want to consistently cover the topic of Hollywood news. Then I can look at all of the upcoming blockbuster film releases. And I can release a few cast confirmed or trailer review style pieces when we expect smaller spikes of interest to both fill some of those daily slots in the Hollywood news top stories carousel, as well as build up content to the movie specific entity. That way, when the big spike hits, the brand entity already has a strong connection to the highly relevant topical entities in the knowledge graph of both the movie name as well as Hollywood news. And that leaves us with seasonal news, where you can go even deeper into strategy planning, as you can not only predict when it will peak, but also learn from what you've done in the past. But be careful. While many of us think of the inevitable rise of pumpkin spice, the Grammys, Champions League, or spring cleaning as seasonal topics, and this is true for web search, not all of them are news relevant. They won't earn those high visibility Google News placements, such as the top stories carousel or the headlines tab. So make sure whatever prediction tool you're using has news specific reporting, like Google Trends, else your strategy may flop. Based on the news interest, you can plan continuous coverage of a topic for the length of the season. This focus on freshness is relevant, both at the brand level, where Google has repeatedly stated that it is critical to consistently produce news-related content, and at the individual content piece level. Non-personalized placements tend to bias towards content under 10 hours old, while the lifespan of personalized placements is around 2 days. When you see a piece of content start to drop off, refresh it by doing a substantial update to the content. This could include adding fresh text, rewriting key elements such as the title or the subheading, or swapping out images or video. It's also helpful to change the URL. And if you don't regain traction through republishing, create a new article from a different angle to appeal to Google News' desire for diversity of content. Don't rely solely on short news reporting. Go deeper with interviews, opinion pieces, data journalism, photojournalism, live coverage, or any other way to explore a fresh angle. And if you're a small team and you're hitting resource constraints, syndicated reportage is preferable to no coverage. Google asks for originality and promises to feature the publication that broke the story, but analysis highlights how freshness often wins over originality. So ignore Google's desire to have you no index syndicated content. Remember A&P? Remember Core Web Vitals? Don't ask how high when Google says jump. Tell them no. Index that syndicated content, because it's often beneficial to supplement original stories with syndicated content to boost freshness, especially if you take the time to tweak it to be in your own brand voice. But if you don't have the time and simply publish it directly as your own, if your brand entity has a strong connection to that topic, chances are Google News will drive sessions to it. Just don't let syndication become too large a portion of your overall content, any more than a quarter, and you may start to see your reputation with Google slide. So let's wrap this up. Here are the key takeaways to dominate Google News placements. First, building a strong brand in the Google Knowledge Graph and cementing its connections to other valuable entities for credibility and topical authority. A must of this process is comprehensive structured data, but don't neglect other Google News critical technical factors such as speedy crawling. Once you have that strong foundation, then consistently cover your target topics in diverse article and video formats to watch your YouTube views and article page views grow. But keep it fresh, or they will just as quickly crash. And maybe you're wondering, who am I to tell you all of this? Well, for the last 10 years, I worked as a CMO for the Swiss media company Ringier. I've optimized over 60 news sites and lifestyle websites. And as of this month, I am now a full-time marketing consultant. So if you want some dedicated support, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter, or even better, ask me your questions now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. That was very thorough and detailed. Took a ton of notes for later. We do have a couple of questions to kind of kick us off. If anyone else has any other questions, drop them in the Q&A box, and Jess will do her best to answer them. So to start, do you need a news sitemap to benefit from Google News?
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a news sitemap, you are going to significantly struggle to be competitive. So I would see that as an absolute must-have, one of the first things you should do if you want to optimize for Google News.
Awesome. And then the next one, I think I know the answer, but how important is timeliness and freshness of content in Google News?
It depends what placement you're targeting. So when we're talking about freshness, we're talking about absolute maximum 3 days. If it's more than 3 days old, the probability of getting any traction is almost none. But then when we're talking about these really competitive general placements, so if you're trying to get into the top stories carousel, if it's more than a day old or even 12 hours old, you might see yourself struggling if that's a really trending popular topic. When you're talking about the personalized placements, your content will have more lifespan because Google's going to deliver that as people come into Google News, which for most people is a daily habit. So it is a 24-hour cycle, but especially because of weekends or weekdays, depending on what type of news reader you are, you can get a little bit more longevity there. So that's why it's kind of that 3-day cutoff. If someone's publishing on Friday, it can go in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it's not going to be shown on Monday.
Oh, cool. That's a good note. And then I have a kind of question around, you're talking about updating content and you mentioned changing the URL structure. And usually we kind of stay away from that in like SEO. Like what's the benefit of changing that URL structure?
So what I found in my own testing is that if I just change, the image and the text on the page, Google's still know that URL. So you're going to have a couple of challenges. Just because you change it doesn't mean Google immediately knows that you changed it or cares that you changed it. So you're still waiting on Google to go and crawl that page, which is why that crawling speed is so critical from when a piece of content is published or when a piece of content is updated. You can measure that, by the way, with using the Google APIs that measure crawling or your crawl logs. So you publish it, maybe Google doesn't go crawl it, they don't know that you've updated the content or don't care, and then it's not going to do anything in Google News because they haven't processed the change. Even if you publish it and they immediately crawl it, they still know that they've been featuring that URL for the last 2 days. So maybe they're like, well, I have this other really nice piece of content from your competitor that's fresh and brand new, so I'm going to take them instead. When you take it down from a URL, do some small modifications and put it up on a new URL with a new title, Google is more inclined to go, oh, that's a brand new piece of content. I need to go and crawl it very quickly, and I'm going to go and index that very quickly. So it gets you back into that Google News placement much more dependably. The obvious downside to this is if that piece of content was not only created for Google News.
Yeah.
So if it's kind of, if you're doing evergreen content, it shouldn't be in news anyway. That's your evergreen and discover. It's a separate strategy. But if you're thinking I'm going to publish a piece of content and kind of have it everywhere, and I'm heavily putting this out on my social media, you've got to make sure you have those 301 redirects to take care of those other audiences as well, and kind of acknowledge, I'm doing this as a time limited strategy. I'm going to butcher the other channels because they're small contributors in comparison to Google News, which is the primary contributor. So you're sacrificing the other channels to get that big Google News boost because you write that content for the time limited news audience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super clear. It makes a lot of sense now. And I think we have two more questions. The next one would be, are there any tools to surface trending topics in Google News?
So Google Trends, it has a dedicated news tab that you can go in and look at. They break that out both as the real-time trends, and they break that out as kind of the month-on-month, year-on-year, whatever you want to look at trends. I think it goes back 5 years. I could be wrong, but honestly, like whatever happened 5 years ago, it's not relevant. You don't need to look back that far. Looking back a year or maximum 2 is more than enough. Although looking back 2, you kind of hit that small blip we had as an entire world, which has messed up all of the metrics. So I tend to only
Yes.
look back for 12 months at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree
So
with that.
Google News is definitely my kind of, it's a free tool. Everybody can use it. It's just there. You can go do that. If you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, then tools like News Dash are a better option.
Oh, cool. Okay. And then Bob, I think this is what he's asking is, do you have any other resources in learning how to leverage Google News?
The newsletter by Barry Adams. I am a
Oh
religious
yeah.
subscriber. It's
Yes.
really, really good. He's excellent at explaining quite complicated topics in a very accessible manner. So subscribe to that for sure. Outside of that, there's often some good content published on, your search engine journals, search engine lands that you can go and subscribe to the topics there. But yeah, for me, the kind of evangelical of Google News is Barry Adams.
Now, before we wrap this up, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content from the industry's best SEOs, content marketers, and content strategists. The ClearScope webinar series happens every week and helps SEO content creators of all skill levels advance their knowledge. Hope to see you. Tune in next time.